Hello, welcome back to my channel. Once again, this is yours truly, Jobren. So today I'll be explaining another lesson in the subject of readings in Philippine history. So this video is purely for educational purposes. And hopefully, you are still learning throughout my learning videos. Once again, this is yours truly, Jobren. So today, our topic is we will be discussing our lesson number 4.1 in the subject of readings in Philippine history, and that is our topic is taxation under the Americans. So we are done discussing about taxation under the Spanish time. Now we're going to proceed with discussing a bit about the taxation under the Americans. By the way, to those who are new to my channel discusses a lot of things, a lot of learning videos. If you like my channel, please do hit like, share, and subscribe to get more updates. Okay, so taxation under the Americans. So as what we know, taxation, this is very important to our economy. So we are paying our taxes to help the economy grow. So under Americans, taxation under the Americans, they are trying to help our economy, our Philippine economy to make us more self-sufficient. So from 1898 to 1903, the Americans followed the Spanish system on taxation with a little bit of changes. So noting that the system introduced before with the Spaniards were very outdated and very less advanced. So during the American time, they are trying to make some changes. We also have the land tax. So during the American time, they also have this called the land tax. So they are paying for the land. This is both on the urban and the rural real estate. So the problem with land tax was that land titling in the rural area was very disorderly. So we are paying taxes for our land tax, real estate. But the problem in our area, especially in the area of the rural area, was very disorderly. So the appraising of land value was influenced by from political and familial factors. So they are having a lot of difficulty because there is no document, there is no proper documentation about the appraising of land value. So, and also this time, tax evasion was very prevalent, especially among the elites. So, tax evasion means people are not paying taxes, especially those who are on higher ranks. Tax evasion was very prevalent, especially among those people who are in the higher position. So, the Internal Revenue Law of 1904 was passed as a reaction to the problems of collecting land tax. So they are having difficulty in collecting land taxes. So the Internal Revenue Law of 1904 was passed. So because of the problem that they are facing because of in collecting land taxes, so they prescribe 10 major sources of revenue. So the main purpose of taxation is to increase our revenue, our economy revenue. So they prescribe 10 major sources of revenue. Number one is license taxes on firms dealing on alcohol, beverages, and tobacco. Number two, during the American time, is they are also getting excise taxes on alcohol, beverages, and tobacco products. Number three, sources of revenue is taxes on insurance and insurance companies. Number four, taxes on forest products. Five is the document stamp taxes. I think you're all familiar with this, the documentary stamp. This is it's one of the sources of revenue. The cedula, so we're also paying that until now. So the higher the salary that you are getting, so you also need to pay your cedula. Just to get your cedula, you need to pay an amount, so an amount required to you depending on your salary. The mining concessions, taxes on business and manufacturing. So if you're a businessman, you also required to pay taxes during the American time. Occupational licenses, for example, if you're a licensed like me, I am a licensed psychometrician. So licensed doctor, they're also paying. Mga doctors, nurses are also paying for occupational licenses, taxes on banks and bankers. So these are the top 10 major sources of revenue. 1907, some provinces were authorized to double the fee for the cedula. So to double the fee for the cedula to support the construction and the maintenance of roads. So now they are, because we can get income through the cedula. So in 1907, some provinces were required to double the fee for the cedula just to support the maintenance of the roads. So the construction and maintenance of the roads. So they have the so-called the industria tax. This was levied on the business community. This was the industrial tax was for the business community, and it became a highly complex system that assigned a certain tax to an industrial or commercial activity according to their profitability. So the industrial tax, so if you're a businessman, you are required to pay this tax depending on your profitability. So it depends on your profit. So you need to pay taxes. So this is called as the industrial tax. So in 1913, the Underwood-Simons Tariff Act was passed, resulting in a reduction of the revenue of the government as export taxes on sugar, tobacco, and copra were lifted. 1914, an income tax was introduced. So, income tax was introduced. In 1919, an inheritance tax was created. So, we have this income tax. I know you are all familiar with this. We also have this in 1919, an inheritance tax was created. So, if you inherit that properties, you also need to pay inheritance tax. In 1932, a national lottery was established to create more revenue for the government. So, however, these new creations were not enough to increase government revenues. So, there's a lot of uh, income sources of revenue, income taxes were established, but again, these new creations were not enough to increase government revenues. So during the American time, they were still having a hard time collecting taxes, especially the land taxes, because the land taxes were very disorderly. The titling of the land, the paying of the taxes, uh, even though they are increasing the payment for the cedula, we have this the income tax, we have this inheritance tax, and a lot of things were created just to increase the revenue for the government. But then again, during the American time, these new creations were not enough to increase government revenue. So let's try to go to the taxation under the Commonwealth period. So there were a lot of new measures, legislation were introduced to make the taxation system appear more equitable during the Commonwealth. So in 1936, adding a sort tax rate on individual net incomes in excess of 100,000 pesos. So income tax rates of corporation were also increased. So in 1936, income tax rates of corporation were also increased. So they are the corporation taxes were increased. So in 1937, the cedula tax was abolished during the Commonwealth period, which appeared to be a progressive move. But in 1940, a residence tax was imposed on every citizen aged 18 years old and on every corporation. So again, the corporate taxes were increased during the Commonwealth period. In 1937, the cedula was abolished. In 1940, a residence tax was imposed on every citizen. They need to pay aged 18 years old and on every corporation. So the introduced tax structure was an improvement of the earlier system introduced by the Americans, but still remained inequitable. So it showed improvement, the introduced tax structure, but still it remains not equal to everybody. So the lower class still felt the bulk of the burden of taxation. So the lower class, those people who are struggling, who are uh, who are struggling, they felt the bulk of the burden of taxation. While the upper class, those who are elite, those are in the higher position, the landed elite are the people in political positions who are able to maneuver the situation that would benefit them more. So the lower class felt the burden of paying taxes, while the upper class, they can still maneuver the situation that would benefit them more. So the agricultural sector was still taxed low to promote growth. So the agricultural sector were taxed to promote growth because the agricultural products is this is badly needed by people. This is very important for people to survive. So that's why they are considered still they need to pay taxes, but in a very low tax. But there was no incentive for industrial investment to take root and develop. So finally, a common character of taxation during the American occupation of the Philippines was not used to diversify the economy or direct economic development, as some sectors still carry a disproportionate share of the tax burden. So during the Commonwealth period, the taxation under the Commonwealth period, so again, this was not this was not used for diversity. There is an equal sharing. This they felt disproportionate share of the tax burden. So as World War II reached the Philippine shore, economic activity was put to stop in the Philippines, bowed to a new set of administrations, the Japanese. So the Japanese military administration in the Philippines during World War II was immediately continued the system of tax collection introduced during the Commonwealth. So they continued the tax collection implemented during the Commonwealth period, but exempted the articles belonging to the Japanese armed forces. The foreign trade fell, and the main sources of taxation came from amusement, manufactures, professions, and business licenses. So, as the war raged, tax collection was a difficult task, and additional incomes of the government were derived from the sales of the national sweepstakes and the sale of government bonds. So, the expenditure of the Japanese military government grew greatly, and they issued military notes in order to cover the cost of the war. So during the Japanese time, they continued the tax collecting system of the Commonwealth period, but they're exempted the articles belonging to the Japanese armed forces. So the main sources of taxation during the Japanese time: amusement, manufactures, profession, and business licenses. So again, they still experience a lot of difficulty in tax collection. It was a very difficult task, and additional incomes of the government were derived from the sales of national sweepstakes and sale of government bonds.